Hey, what's up everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today doing another mid-year top 10. This is on the 160-pound middleweight division. Again, guys, if you missed it, I have my second episode of my True Boxing podcast out. Go check it out on my YouTube channel. Talk all things boxing. It's about an hour long, so you guys watch it in pieces if you like. But yeah, a lot of things we discussed all the way back from the Mayweather and Paul fight, all the way through what's coming up in the month of August. Again, I'm going to try to get episode 3 rolling right before the Pacquiao and Errol Spence fight that they're having right there on the 21st. So let's jump into the middleweights though, the 160-pound division. We're just going to look at my top 10 now at the midway point, see what's going on. So number 10 is Luis Arias. He previously was not ranked. He's, Luis Arias kind of came out of nowhere. He took on Jarrett Hurd in a middleweight fight, former unified junior middleweight champ, and he beat him by a 10-round split decision impressively. So, Luis Arias has thrown his name in the mix, at least for the moment, because he got a win over a former champ in Jarrett Hurd. And, we'll see what he does going forward. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets fed to Jermall Charlo, because he's a PBC guy, and he's coming off a big win, and Charlo is always looking for setups before a potential big fight later down the road. So I wouldn't be surprised if he were to land a Charlo fight before the end of the year, but we'll see. Number 9 is the guy they call Kazakh style. I'm going to try to pronounce his name. It's Zanabek Alim Kanuli. They call him Kazakh style. He came out in June, I think it was June, and he got a monster upset win over former champion Rob Brandt. Stopped him in the 8th round of that fight impressively, and has thrown himself in the mix at 10-0. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I wouldn't even try to pronounce the guy's name because I didn't think he was going to beat Rob Brandt, who was a top 10 middleweight, and he went out and he beat him impressively, and now has thrown himself in the mix. So congratulations to him. Not sure what he's going to do next, but he's definitely a player in the middleweight division now. Number 8 is the former WBA interim champion, Chris Eubank Jr. He previously was number 5. He might still be the interim champ, but the WBA hasn't mandated Eubank to fight anybody. He returned and took on some little-known guy named Mark Morrison, got a 10-round decision in that. He's trying to push forward towards a big fight, but you guys know Eubank. Eubank doesn't really fight premier-level opposition unless he's got a big fight, in the mix. And this guy just, to me, it's pretty annoying because I think he should be fighting world-level competition, and trying to fight in eliminators and stuff, but he only waits around for the big fight. So he's dropped a few spots because of his inactivity and his lack of credible opposition since he beat James DeGale in February of 2019. Number 7 is the WBA super champion, Ryota Murata. Murata drops 1 spot for number 6. He was upgraded to the super champion when Canelo gave up the belt in January to officially, stay at 168 pounds. And now Murata is, there was talks earlier in the year that he was going to return during the summer, and that there's a possible unification showdown with Triple G Gennady Golovkin coming up on New Year's Eve. I think that's only going to happen if Canelo ends up fighting Caleb Plant, which looks to be the case. That's the only chance that Murata has of that fight going down, but we'll see. It's an interesting fight, him and Triple G, if they lock horns. I hope they, that Murata gets a good, decent opponent. I think Triple G is a great opponent, and it really would turn Murata into a superstar if he could beat Triple G. But, that's a tough fight for him right there. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. Hopefully we hear something about his return coming up soon, because he hasn't fought since December of 2019. So been waiting and waiting for Murata to come back. Number 6 is the former 3-time world title challenger, Sergey Derevyanchenko. Derevyanchenko, we still haven't heard anything about him since he lost to Jermall Charlo last September when he challenged for the WBC title. He got beat convincingly over 12 rounds and kind of beat up in that fight. He kept coming forward, though. He's a grinder. He's a tough guy, but we really don't know what Derevyanchenko is doing next and what his plans are. So hopefully we hear something going forward. Hopefully he's trying to get back in the mix, some kind of an eliminator. We'll see. Number 5 is the undefeated former junior middleweight champion Jaime Munguia. Munguia returned and took on Primožas Saleta. He took on Primožas Saleta in June, and it was on 2 weeks' notice. He was supposed to fight Maciej Sulecki. He took on Saleta, who had fought Triple G back in December and fought hard, but he doesn't really have a lot of punching power, and Triple G stopped him in 7 rounds. Now, Jaime Munguia had to beat that or equal that, and he did. He stopped Saleta in 6 rounds and only had, a 2-week notice on fighting him. So that was pretty impressive performance out of Munguia. Munguia's trying to push forward towards getting in the mix for a title shot. Him and Triple G were talking earlier in the year. I still think that's a possibility in the second half of the year, but a quick turnaround opponent that's possible is, what's his name? I just drew a blank on his name. Gabriel Rosado. Gabriel Rosado just knocked out Melikuziev at 168. He said he's available to fight Jaime Munguia if Munguia wants to fight, and I think that's the most likely option for Munguia going forward before he tries to dip his toe into a title fight in the next year. But I would rather see him fight Triple G or Ryota Murata, so we'll see what happens. Number 4 is the newly crowned WBA regular champion, Erislandy Lara. He wasn't ranked coming in. He was ranked at 154. Lara decided to move up in weight and take on Cornflake Lamana, and he stopped Lamana in only 1 round to capture the vacant WBA regular belt. Now he's a title holder in 2 weight classes, so, I think he'd prefer to fight at 154 because there's more PBC guys there, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lara were to get the fight with Jamal Charlo, just to keep things interesting and, give Lara an opportunity at a world title at 160. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing what Lara does next, but I wouldn't rush to think it's going to be anytime soon that we find out. Lara usually fights 6, 7, 8 months at a time, and we usually don't find out until about a month or 2 before he fights, unless it's a big fight. Number 3 is the undefeated WBO champion, Demetrius Andrade. Andrade returned in April or May and took on Liam Williams of the United Kingdom. He scored a convincing 12-round unanimous decision, knocked Williams down early in the fight, but Williams really closed the fight strong and landed some good shots on Andrade. Andrade tried to crash Canelo's post-fight press conference and try to draw Canelo into getting him a fight. He tried to do Antonio Tarver style that Tarver did to Roy Jones, but Canelo laughed at him, told him to get the fuck out of there, and Canelo's not even considering that fight. So Andrade, he's going to have to grow some balls and just stay active and fight somebody who's willing to fight him. That's pretty much his only option. Or move up to 168 and chase Canelo if he really has grown big balls and give up that middleweight title. But we'll see what happens next. Number 2 is the undefeated WBC middleweight champion, Jamal Charlo. He's still number 2. Charlo returned and off of his biggest victory against Sergey Derevyanchenko last September, and he took on Juan Montiel in June and scored a convincing but harder than expected 12-round decision over Montiel. I think a lot of people, myself included, were expecting him to blast Montiel out of the water, and that just didn't happen. I think he was overlooking Montiel. Montiel landed some good shots on Charlo and ended up being a pretty good fight, but Charlo convincingly won on points, but he's supposedly calling out Canelo and trying to chase him around, but he's fighting nobodies in the process. So he's another guy. He really wants Canelo, grow some balls, drop his title at 160, move up to 168, and fight a real contender to get in the ring with Canelo. And finally, still number 1 is the reigning IBF champion, Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Triple G, he was in rumors to fight Jaime Munguia. That fight didn't pan out. Then he's been in rumors for a possible showdown with Canelo in September if the Plant fight falls through, but it looks like the Plant fight is going forward. There's also talks about Triple G fighting Ryota Murata on New Year's Eve. I think Triple G really needs to weigh his options and fight the best available opponent if he doesn't get Canelo. I think that's Jaime Munguia in terms of star power. I don't think Jamal Charlo's going to want to fight him. So I think Jaime Munguia is the most logical and best opponent that he can fight outside of Demetrius Andre to unify belts, of course. But does Triple G want that fight? So we got to wait and see. Middleweight division is very wide open. We really don't know what's going to happen in the middleweight division going forward, but it's still a good, solid division. I'm looking forward to seeing if these guys grow some balls and have some heart and fight each other. So that's the mid-year top 10 on the 160-pound middleweight division. My middleweight of the year so far. If I had to choose one, it'd be tough. I might just choose Jaime Munguia, but we'll see. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing. You've been here with the truth.